The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
All right, listen, normally when I do these podcasts, and especially when I do the intro, I'm a little bit nervous because I'm like, God, here's another one. I got to make sure. But I will tell you, I am so comfortable with this guy, Scott Siverts. And for those of you that are not watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, just picture The Rock. Picture a white version of The Rock with glasses on and a nice beard and goatee, but built like a brick shit house. I don't know if we should talk geopolitics or if we should talk weight and fitness. And so maybe we'll talk both. But listen, man, Scott, welcome, buddy. Welcome back, I should say. Although, gosh, our first episode that I recorded with you and Matt, ironically, the day after President Trump got quote unquote shot, which we'll put those in quotes for now. That one got screwed up with an audio thing, but welcome back, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you having me. I love a deep, shallow dive. I love everything you do across all the social media platforms, the wide variety and range of guests. Your audience seems to be extremely knowledgeable, to give, your listeners a little credit. I mean, the range that you have and the talent that you have, I, enjoy you. I respect the heck out of you.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate, the feeling's mutual. And I want to say this on the air, because ironically, I was saying it 2 minutes before I pressed record. I'll tell you what's interesting, everybody. And this is, like, in my opinion, humanity at its finest. You look at Scott and I, and on the surface, we're very different. Scott's probably 6'2", white, built like a brick shithouse. I'm 5'7", light brown, mocha. Who the hell knows? I'm wearing a vest. He's wearing a polo. His guns are probably 18 inches. My guns are not 18 inches. So my point is, we look very different on the surface, but I get along with this guy so well because we have a shared sense of humanity. It's really that. It's really come down to that. And you know what's funny? I didn't even prepare for this episode the way I normally do by sending out a loose agenda and all that, because I genuinely get along with you so well. And I thought, you know what? You're going to be an open book. I'm going to be an open book. And we're just going to talk about everything. So let's start with, I think it'll be very interesting for people to understand, you grew up like traditional evangelical Christian, like Bible thumper. I mean, I don't know if that's an appropriate, but help us understand how you grew up.
Yeah, I was the youngest in a family of just four. My parents were educators. Both my mother and father were teachers. My mother was a professor at a Christian college, and my father was a math teacher at a local public school. And they accepted Christ. They became born-again Christians in 1970. And they were evangelical Zionists from the beginning. And I got sent to a private Christian school. So, probably at 4 or 5 years old, I went down the Roman road, accepted Christ as my personal Lord and Savior, even though I probably didn't really understand actually what I was praying or what I was doing. Then later on, of course, I going through the church and going through Christian education, I accepted Christ and read the Bible, memorized verse after verse, week after week in Bible class and Bible study. And I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. And while I was in the Marine Corps, 9/11 happens right in boot camp. I go in August of 2001, September 9/11 happens, and there comes this kind of, at the time, this kind of anti-Muslim sentiment.
Yeah.
What's going on? It's terrorists. The terrorists hate us. The terrorists hate our freedom. If we don't go over there and fight them, they're going to come here and we're going to have to fight them here. That was kind of the sentiment. So here, I adopted this mentality that Muslims hate us. Islam is not a religion of peace. And it's all this stuff that you hear regurgitated from really the neocons.
Yeah.
And, I just looked, Israel is our greatest ally. They're our only ally over there. They're a democracy in the Middle East. And I had been taught all the same verses growing up by my parents. that it's Genesis 12:3, it's Numbers 23:9. Those who bless my people, I will bless. Those who curse my people, I will curse. It's when I look back at it, it's almost kind of like there was a veiled threat there, where it's like, if you don't support this country, then God's going to curse you.
Yeah.
God's going to put a curse, and that's a heck of a thing as a believer. If you believe in God and you believe in Jesus Christ, and you think that this verse is meaning this, then you supported Israel. Uh, uh you know, the kind of awakening for me that happened was sometime after the first Trump election, 2016, 2017. I had a coworker that was from Morocco, and he was Muslim, and he was really the nicest guy that I could have ever been around. He was the kindest, nicest guy. It was funny to be around, and he really didn't. I'd never really been around that many Muslims before. I mean, there were Muslims in the Marine Corps. I never really associated or hung out with them, but this guy was so kind. And then I just started seeing things over and over again pop up. You see Netanyahu come to Congress. He's speaking there. He's getting all these standing ovations. He's kind of dictating where foreign aid is going. I'm seeing all these different things, and I'm starting to question things. I'm like, man, this seems like Israel has an awful lot of control here, but they're our greatest ally. I'm continuing to kind of buy into this. And then sometime around 2020 and COVID, Matty Wack and I start having conversations together.
Okay.
And he starts showing me other literature. He starts talking about the Bolshevik Revolution, and he starts showing me World War I, World War II, things that were happening. I found out about the Holodomor that I never
You found out
knew
about what? About what?
The Holodomor?
I don't even know what that is. What is that? The
Oh,
Holodomor.
The Holodomor. So the Holodomor happened between the year 1932 and 1933. It was the forced starvation of anywhere, the range goes anywhere from 7 to 10 million Ukrainian Christians. The Soviet Union starved 7 to 10 million Ukrainian Christians. Now, if you go to the UN website, United Nations website, they'll recognize the Holodomor. They don't recognize it as a Holocaust.
Okay.
They put their number somewhere from 5 to 7 million in 1 year. In 1 year. So they were resorting to cannibalism. They put guards out in the field to guard the wheat. And this was under Joseph Stalin, and this was under the Bolshevik, Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And it was called the Holodomor. And it was the forced starvation of anywhere you want to put it, 7 to 10 million Christian Ukrainians. And then I came to find out, the Bolsheviks, the majority of the Bolsheviks were Jewish. And there was a clear hatred there for
Christians, right?
Yeah. There was a clear hatred.
It's crazy. Like, there's always been this hate of Christians by Jewish, but it's buried. People don't know about it. Like, I never even knew about this Holodomor. This is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you can Google search this. Anybody can. Any of your listeners, viewers that are watching this, you Google the Holodomor, you'll see. Yeah, but then I started piecing things together, especially when some of these anti-BDS laws came around.
Okay.
Where you have the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, goes over to Israel to sign this anti-BDS. What BDS stands for is boycott, divest, and sanction. You're not allowed to boycott, divest, or sanction any Israeli companies, products. Like if let's say you're Palestinian and you owned an Airbnb, and you live in Florida and you don't want to rent to any Israelis, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to say no. You're not allowed to choose who you want to do business with there in the state of Florida. Now, the governor of Florida goes over and he signs this piece of legislation meant for a state here in America, and he signs it in a foreign country. And there's red flags popping up for me. Like in South Dakota, you have now who is the Secretary of Homeland Security, was the former governor, Kristi Noem. She signs a piece of legislation basically making the gospel anti-Semitic, where stickers need to be put on Bibles saying there's anti-Semitic verses in there.
Yeah, so what's the deal with that? Like, are they saying the Bible is anti-Semitic? Like, the reason that makes no sense to me is, how are you going to say the Bible is anti-Semitic, and then at the same time you have clowns like Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham who are claiming to be Christians and then claiming that Israel's our greatest ally and they support Israel. Like there's so many disconnects, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, you look at those verses they like to cling to, which is Genesis 12:3. Those who bless my people, I will bless. Those who curse my people, I will curse. Now, when you talk about the Old Testament, it's the Old Covenant. The New Testament is the New Covenant. And the stuff that they won't address is Matthew chapter 3:9, where Christ is literally confronted with these Pharisees and Sadducees, who were Jewish priests at the time, or rabbis, and they kind of pull the race card on them. And they say, hey, we're the seed of Moses, we're the seed of Abraham. And Christ says to them, don't think because, oh, you're the seed of Abraham, the seed of Moses. No, God can raise up stones to be the seed of Abraham. So to me, right there, God's saying DNA doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's in your DNA. And then you go to John chapter 8, he addresses them again and he calls them the synagogue of Satan. And he says, you know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father. And then, it happens book after book. Paul writes about it in Galatians chapter 3, where he says, the seed is a spiritual seed. If you're a believer in Christ, then you are the seed of Abraham. And then Galatians chapter 4, Paul says that modern day Jerusalem is Hagar. For people that don't know, Hagar was the slave woman that Abraham had a child with. His name was Ishmael. That was the seed of the slave, not the seed of the promise. Now, in the Bible, it says Abraham was found worthy through faith, not by anything else, not by deeds, but because he believed. So the seed of the promise is through faith, not by the flesh. So the seed of the promise is Christ.
Yeah.
That's the new covenant there. We have a new covenant with Jesus Christ. And here, the one that really puts the nail in the coffin, and there's multiple, but 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 14 through 16, Paul literally says, and anybody can look this up, that the Jews killed Christ, and some translations even say, and they are the scourge of all mankind. That's in the Bible. It says that the Jews killed Christ, and they're the scourge of all mankind. Even Matthew 27, Pontius Pilate says, the blood's not on my hands.
Yeah.
And they said, let it be on our hands. Let it be on our hands. So there's always been this hatred of Jesus Christ. In fact, you recently had Ken O'Keefe on.
Yeah.
Who's a great guy.
Yeah.
A former Marine as well. We get along really well. And he was calling out Israel and being pro-Palestinian before it was cool.
Absolutely. Ken's the OG of all that stuff. He's been saying this for 20 or 30 years. All right, really quick, before we...
But real quick,
Yeah,
what he said to me one time, we were talking, and he goes, I gave a lecture at Cal Berkeley. They invited me to give a lecture. This was years ago. And he got thrown off campus. But he said, he goes, I brought up Adolf Hitler. And he said, the only guy that Jews hate worse than Adolf Hitler? And I said, no. And he goes, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Dude, it's totally true. I mean, it really is. And again, if you really look at the facts, they all say it. They all lay it out. I've had Ken on. I've had Pastor Steven Anderson on. I just had Pastor Matt First on. These are all yourself. I mean, listen, what you just spit out off the top of your head with the Bible verses, it's obvious you know the Bible and you understand the Bible. What I've learned as the outsider looking in is, and this is what I think happened. I think that in the late 1800s, as Theodore Herzl founds Israel, right? I think they realized, hey, we don't have a foothold in America with the Protestants at the time. And so I think they created this dispensationalism concept, which again, I'm not an expert on, but that dispensationalism led to then the creation of the Schofield Bible, right? This Schofield Bible took the King James Bible, added a bunch of notes, and those notes clearly make it to where they convince people that Israel is still God's chosen people and all of that. And they rolled out the Schofield Bible to the entire American Protestant base, and all of a sudden, an entire generation, basically, Christianity got hijacked, and the new covenant, which technically was for anyone who believes in Jesus Christ, it's almost, they hijacked that. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
100% right. And I saw the episode you did with the one pastor. I saw clips with the one you did recently.
Yeah.
Good, really good stuff, man. But yet, you have to understand this is a level of almost like a psychiatric disorder. It's like where they can't let it go, especially the boomer generation. When we're talking about evangelical boomers, and you see that with guys like Mike Huckabee and Lindsey Graham,
Right.
they just repeat the same thing
Yeah.
over and
Over and
over.
over again. Yeah.
And anytime I confront these guys, I used to, I used to work in the bar and restaurant business until I was doxxed and
Yeah.
canceled
Yeah.
there. But I used to have an 80-year-old pastor come in and see me every Saturday, and him and I would talk, and I would show him all this. We'd go through scripture, and I'd show him, current events, news, things that were going on that I found, when I was doing my research, actually, as a young Christian man growing up, it devastated me. It really did, to learn that these people who I thought I was to pray for, were to pray for Jerusalem. We're supposed to bless these people. I'm finding out now that they spit on Christians in Israel. I'm finding out that spitting on Christians is like a Jewish pastime. And you can find these headlines in the Jerusalem Post and anywhere in a lot of Israeli news articles. And then I'm finding out that in this other holy book that they have, the Talmud, that Jesus is actually burning in feces and excrement in hell. And they think Mary's a whore and all these other things. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, these people are supposed to be our closest thing to Christians. We're supposed to serve the same God. And then I thought, no, we don't serve the same God, because Christ said, no one comes to the Father except through me. If you deny Christ, you deny the Father. So I don't know what God they're serving. I think I do, but they're not serving the one and true and only God, Jesus Christ. And when I talk to these boomer evangelicals and I show them some of this stuff, their hearts are hardened.
Yeah.
They're very stubborn. But what they hold on to in the dispensationalist world is they still believe that Israel plays a role in end time prophecy.
Okay. Okay.
And that's where they get stuck on.
Okay, okay, let's talk about this, because you know what's funny? My brother literally just the other day, he's like, "Hey, I listened to the episode with Pastor Matt First, and I loved Pastor Matt First, but he believes in the end time prophecy. Can you help us understand what this is like?" And I'm not gonna lie, man, I think you know me well enough to know I am open-minded like a motherfucker. I really
Yeah.
am. I'm so open-minded, and
You can have a conversation with anybody.
I thank you. I appreciate that, and I really feel like I can. Where I just have a hard time wrapping my mind around is they really believe in this end times. What is this? And what happens?
Well, so when we're looking at the end time prophecies of the Bible, everyone points to Revelation. Everyone goes to the last book of the Bible. But a lot of it starts really in Daniel and Ezekiel. And there's a lot of things that need to happen. And the Jewish prophecy, end time prophecy, coincides with Christian end time prophecy. And even Islam. I mean, when we're talking about these three religions, they're the Abrahamic religions.
Yeah.
They all come from the same guy. It's Abraham. He had two sons, Isaac and Ishmael. Isaac had two sons, and it was Jacob and Esau. And um, when we're dealing with the end times here, you look at the major and the minor prophets in the Old Testament. You have Isaiah, which prophesies Christ, chapter 53. You have Daniel, you have Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Nehemiah. But particularly in Ezekiel, what you're looking at here is a prophetic vision of what is referred to as Gog Magog war. And that is when, according to biblical prophecy here, countries from the north and the east will converge on Israel,
Okay.
which included Persia, which would be modern day Iran, and they will attack Israel, and Israel will win. And it says that the blood will be so high, it will be up to the horse's bridle, that, it will be this devastating war. But before these things, you know, come to fruition, there needs to be some other things that happen. The third temple has to be built. Now, the first temple was King Solomon's temple. That got destroyed. And then there was a second temple built, and that got destroyed in 70 AD after Christ died.
Mhm.
And now there's a mosque where the third temple's supposed to be.
Okay.
And one of the signs of the coming of the end of days is that a third temple will be built and that animal sacrifices will start again for the covering of sins. And they to kick the ball rolling, so to speak, there has to be a sacrifice of an unblemished red heifer. This is all biblical prophecy. In
Okay.
fact, you may have seen this, you may not have. If you look up Google, it's on Google. You probably see it on Instagram. If you Google search red heifer sacrifice, a few years ago, there was a farm in Texas that flew out, I believe, 5 red heifers to Israel. And there's even been rumors recently that Israel in secret performed this sacrifice of the red heifer to kind of kick the ball rolling here.
Yeah.
Because what they believe is that they're going to bring back animal sacrifices. There's going to be a third temple. They're going to get all the land that God promised them, the land of Canaan, which, if you're familiar with the Greater Israel Project, that would include parts of Syria, that would include parts of Saudi Arabia, that would include basically Iraq, that would include parts of Jordan, Egypt even.
Yeah.
So they're building their empire, they're expanding their land, and they think they have a divine right to it. They think that God has promised them this land.
Yeah.
And I'll quote Jeremy Sladen here, J Slay USA. He pointed this out to me, and he's 100% right. If people go and they want to do their research, because the Bible says, study to show yourself approved. So you should do your own research. You should do your own reading on this stuff. But in Joshua 23:15, it said that God fulfilled every single promise already. So when you look at the Torah, the first 5 books is Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. The 6th book of the Bible, Joshua, says that by that time, God had fulfilled his end of the bargain. And the only way, and it was conditional. This covenant that he had with Israel was not unconditional. And it really wasn't with Israel. It was with the seed of Abraham.
Yeah.
It was conditional that they obeyed him. It was conditional on obedience. And when they disobeyed him, they lost their land. And there you see this pull and struggle with God and the Israelites and throughout the history of the Old Testament. But to finish with the end time prophecy, they believe once they start animal sacrifices again, once the third temple's built, there will be an attack on Israel that will be devastating, basically a third world war. Israel will come out on top, and their Mashiach, or their Messiah, will reign. Now, where this deviates from the Christian prophecy, because Christians believe the exact same thing.
Okay.
They believe in all that. In Ezekiel, the Gog-Magog war, the building of the third temple. In fact, you even have the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. He gave a speech at the King David Hotel years ago where he talked about, we can rebuild the third temple. I don't know how it's going to be done, but we can rebuild it. Well, that would have to include them destroying the mosque that's right
And by the
there.
way, like, if they destroy that mosque, and again, I'm not a practicing Muslim, so I don't know all this, but I know that mosque is incredibly important to the Muslims. So let's say Israel carpet bombed that mosque the way they've carpet bombed and destroyed Gaza. They said, hey, there's one Hamas guy under that mosque. Let's blow up the whole mosque, which seems to be their MO. I mean, that's going to cause all hell to break loose, right?
Oh, of course.
And then where I'm going with this is, I could see them doing it because all the Christian evangelicals will think this is what the Bible said. So they'll be like, oh my God, it's happening. The end of times is coming. And recently, I think they did sacrifice. They sacrificed a red something. I don't know if it was a heifer. Was it a heifer or a horse? What is a heifer? I don't even know what a heifer is. Is it a cow?
It's a cow.
Okay. Dude, this stuff is it's so insane. Like, it's so insane to think about, but it's so diabolical that, let's say they genetically engineer the perfect red cow, they sacrifice it, they blow up Alaska Mosque, the Arab countries bomb the shit out of Israel, America has to come to the aid of Israel. The Mike Huckabees of the world and Lindsey Graham's and Ted Cruz's and all the evangelicals, like, they're going to be cheering it on because they think this is the prophecy of the Bible. Is that right?
You got it right on the money. And really, when you think about it, a large part of Christianity here, it's almost like a death cult, because they're hoping for the end of the world, because then Christ comes back. And in this whole prophetic end times vision here, Christians need Jewish prophecy to come true for Christianity and Christian prophecy to come true. they're kind of interlinked here. And it's this kind of death march where it's like they're hoping for the end of the world. They're hoping for all this. And it's kind of sick when you think about it. It's kind of sick. They're willing to let innocent lives be lost. They're willing to see what's going on over there now is maybe the largest crisis that we've seen in 100 years, what's happening in Gaza. And if you're a Christian and you're supporting this genocidal state, this illegitimate state over there, then you're in the wrong. And God will judge you for the stance you take here, because what's happening over there, there's in the book of Proverbs, it says that there's 7 things that God hates. And one of them is the shedding of innocent blood. And what's been done over there is you have the shedding of these innocent people, and you have children that are holding cans. They're shell cans from bombs that have gone off that says property of U.S. government on them. They're holding these cans, and we're facilitating this as a country. Our taxpayer dollars are going to fund this genocide over there. People are starving to death. I don't think we can even really grasp the magnitude of what's going on over there. It's a deliberate kind of lack of humanity.
It's a lack of humanity. Exactly. And you know what? I want to say this too. It's a lack of humanity across the board. And this includes the Arab nations. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see Saudi Arabia coming to the rescue of their fellow Palestinians. I don't see Jordan and Egypt, the countries that border Israel, coming to the rescue of their fellow Palestinians. Even Iran, Iraq, all these Muslim countries, I don't see any of them doing much of anything to really stop people. I also don't see Xi Jinping in China really doing anything. I don't see Putin really doing anything. It's just, if you really like step up to 30,000 feet and look down, and you and I have no skin in this game. You know what I mean? We're not anything. We're just human beings looking at it. It's like, what are we doing? Like, what are they doing? What are we even looking at? It's crazy. And they're all guilty. This is one thing I've recently tried to start helping people understand is like, don't say I'm a anything sympathizer, because I'm calling out everybody, the same way you and Maddie did on Burn Pit. All right, let's do this. God, we can talk about that forever. Is there,
can I compliment you real quick?
Sure.
You're 100% right. The Arab world over there has become silent. And you're right to call them out. You're right to call out Israel and Jews for any support that they may have, American citizens for any support they may have of what's going on over there, and the whole world. Xi Jinping, China, Russia, I have to give you credit there. You're calling out everybody across the board here. And recently I see the Prime Minister of France recognize Palestine as a state, or Canada too, and Germany.
Yep.
That's great. But what is that really doing?
Right, exactly.
That's great. It's not doing anything. It's not fixing the problem. No one's saying, hey, look, we're going to come in with troops and we're going to open up some sort of pipeline here where we can feed these people, or we can get them aid, or we can get them the help they need. Nobody's offering any type of solution like that. So anyways, I just wanted to compliment you and say you're right to call out everybody.
I appreciate that, man. And honestly, one of the millions of reasons I wanted to have you on and have you and I do an episode together is, I also want people to, if they're not looking at you, again, I described you earlier and I'll describe you again. Here is a white American dude. He's got no skin in this, and who, by the way, grew up super evangelical Christian. And I know you're still Christian. You still have your Christian faith and all that. Maybe your faith has changed a little over the years and you can explain that. But my point is, I love people like you, because regular Americans, they can't poke a hole in this. They could look at me, and this is real talk. They could look at me and be like, what is this guy? He looks foreign. Of course he's going to support that side. But like, when you're doing it, you can't play that card. You can't play the race card against the Palestinian people. You're supporting the Palestinian people, not because you have any skin in Palestinian people. They're human beings, and you're supporting humanity. And to me, I give you so much credit, man. It's like, it just hits so much harder coming from you in a good way. And then that's where I I can't understand people that call themselves Christians and they're not speaking up about it. Guys like Patrick Bet David, whom I like so many things he talks about, but I'm like, dude, you're a coward. You're supposedly this big Christian, Assyrian, Armenian, whatever he is, born in Iran. And like, not one time have you had the guts to stand up to for the Palestinian people. The most you do is enable your guy Vinny to talk shit on Adam. That's the most he does. You know, it's like, it's crazy, man. That sense of humanity is just lost with some people.
I agree, and I'll say this: I'm with you on Patrick Bet David. I think he's a very talented guy. He's built himself quite a platform, and he did the one interview with Dan Bilzerian, and that kind of pushed the limits a bit, where he let Dan talk. And after that, I haven't really heard much about him. And he won't go into things. He won't really criticize Netanyahu. He won't criticize Israel. He won't speak up for the Palestinians. So we've talked about this. I'll give a little window into kind of the background of you and I a little bit. Is a few months ago, you gave me a phone call. We were probably on the phone for like 40 minutes and we had a conversation. It was really good. You gave me a little mentorship. You gave me a little advice, and I'll keep that private between you and I. But we did talk about kind of the parameters that you're allowed to speak about. There's things that you're allowed to speak. And if you take it outside too far one way or the other, those parameters, you're going to be silenced. And you have to operate inside this game if you want to play the game. And you want to have any kind of foot in this, whatever you want to call it, in this sphere that we're in of trying to influence people and trying to spread a word. And I think Patrick Bet David knows that very well.
Yeah. Yes.
He's making a lot of money from what he does. He has written different books. That Choose Your Enemies Wisely was one of them that I actually bought and I read. And I thought he's doesn't want to rock the wrong boat and get the backlash that you see people get.
Yeah.
So you call it cowardice? I agree with you. I think it is a little cowardice that he won't speak up, especially when you have this atrocity going on. But there's a lot of them that won't, and there's a lot of them that gatekeep.
Yeah.
They'll touch on the APAC thing, like Tucker and Ted Cruz. You saw that interview where we'll talk about APAC, but they won't go further than
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, I want to get your opinion on this. You know, I have thought very highly of Tucker. I've thought very highly of Candace Owens. Those are two people that have really spearheaded so much. And again, I will give them their due on all of that. But then recently, and I know you saw this, they started attacking Nick Fuentes, this kid, Nick Fuentes, who's 26 years old. And honestly, in my opinion, potentially the clearest and most strategic and intelligent voice when it comes to geopolitics, especially around this issue on Israel. And then also in terms of Trump and MAGA and the true meaning of America first. I think Nick Fuentes is as talented a speaker at the age of 26 as Barack Obama was in his prime. And again, I've got a lot of issues with Obama, but I've always given the dude his due when it comes to public speaking. He was an unbelievable orator, and I think Nick is that as well. I lost a little bit of respect for both Candace and Tucker when they went after Nick, and it made me realize, hey, you know what? Everybody's capable of everything. What are your thoughts on those three, or that situation, or what I just said?
I think your observations are very astute. I think you're right on the money. As professionals, I think Tucker and Candace Owens, you can't deny their talent. But I think Nick is a generational talent, and I've seen posts that you've made on Deep Shallow Dive on Instagram and on TikTok, where you kind of I've shared the same type of mentality, which is regardless of what you think of the kid and things he said and where he stands, you think he's a Nazi, you think he's a white nationalist. When he breaks down geopolitics, and even Tucker acknowledged that. Tucker even said, what a talent this guy is. This guy can go and talk to a camera by himself for 3 hours and just riff. That's a talent.
That is a talent.
It's hard.
That is hard.
It's hard to do.
Yep.
And the guy does it, and you don't hear a or a. It's just, he flows and he goes, and he has a sense of humor about him. I grew up a Rush Limbaugh baby. My dad used to listen to Rush Limbaugh, who was boomer, neoconservative, Chi Coms, all of that. But Rush could go,
Yeah.
and Rush could do a 3-hour show, and he would say things and unabashed and unafraid, and he would make comments that were controversial. And Nick's kind of like a young Rush Limbaugh, but you know, he's definitely influencing a lot of people, and
Yeah.
I think that
Yes.
that is what is concerning to people like Candace and Tucker, because those guys won't touch the topics that Nick will.
Yeah.
And when you saw the interview with Nick and Candace, I thought Nick came off looking better than she did.
Absolutely, absolutely. She actually came off basic. She literally came off basic. It was clear it was a complete hit job, literally from the opening mic. Like, she literally opened up and was in attack mode. She wanted to discredit him. And more than anything, I think she wanted to distance herself from him. And then she doubled down on it in the episode where she did with Tucker Carlson. They both wanted to distance themselves from Nick for some of the reasons maybe that you brought up. But you know what, man? It's pretty interesting. People are smarter than these guys give them credit for, because it was very obvious and they got cooked on social media. They absolutely got cooked. And you know what's funny? I'll admit this. It's affected a little bit my desire to take in their content. I really have not listened to Tucker and Candace as religiously as I did before that Nick stuff. That's pretty funny, man. Gosh.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Same thing happened to me with PBD. He had Dan Bilzerian on, and he kind of saw PBD was trying to protect Israel a
Yeah.
bit, and then
Yeah.
afterwards, I just turned me off to some of his content. And you're right. The same with it. It's funny that you say that. Candace and Tucker, I haven't really tuned into them.
Yeah.
I watched the Tucker with Ted Cruz interview, and I thought, okay, it's interesting. I watched it. But Candace seems like she's just gone off the deep end, and that's something for me to say, because I'll talk with anybody about anything, but she's into the Frankists, and she's into the Khazarians, and she's into, Bridget McCrone,
Right.
and
Right.
he married his dad and all this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, I actually thought that her interview with Philip Torney it took some balls to have that guy on.
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
really,
I do give her credit for that. I think she was the one who had Phil on first. And by the way, I recorded with Phil earlier. I don't know if I'll release that before I release our episode, but I did want to say thank you for making that connection. But here's what's funny. You and Maddie interviewed Phil. I liked your interview with Phil better than I liked Candace's. But you're right. She interviewed him first, and she really brought the USS Liberty into the zeitgeist and into the mainstream. You're right about
I mean, Jocko Willink, I think, was the first kind of mainstream
that.
guy
He did too?
that how Phil Torney on.
I didn't know
And then
that.
right after Jocko did, then it went Candace,
Okay.
and then Jake Shields,
Yeah.
and then we had them all.
Okay.
And it was like people still don't know about the USS Liberty, and that is for another episode. But it's crazy, people still don't know.
It's crazy. It absolutely is crazy. The USS Liberty and Building 7 from 9/11. Like, it's insane to me. I literally had a friend last weekend where we were talking about 9/11, and I was like, well, okay, let's forget the towers for a second. Let's talk about Building 7. And bro was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, you don't know what Building 7 is? That's a third building that collapsed. He's like, there wasn't a third building. There were only 2 planes. He literally did not know there was a third building. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Oh my God. All right. I want to talk about the Berm Pit podcast, and quite frankly, the trials and tribulations that you and Maddie have gone through. And I want to give you guys another plug on this. You guys produced an excellent podcast. You really did. You talked about unbelievably, I mean, think of the Deep Shallow Dive, but man, you're even more raw than I am. And I would listen to your episodes and I would be like, man, I really learned a lot from it. But you guys, you got railroaded, you got shut down and messed with in many ways. I don't even know where you're at with it now, but take us through all that, man. I think this will be really interesting for people.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with I'll move pretty quick here. I started the podcast in December of 2022. And the first guest that I interviewed, and I pre-recorded it, I was renting space at a studio here in Pittsburgh. The first guest I interviewed was Matt McCulloch because he had ran for county sheriff. And he was a pro 2A guy, pro freedom. He was against mask mandates. He was against the COVID lockdowns. And he took a really hard stance. And he got a lot of views. And he ran on very short notice. But he was asked to go speak at Harrisburg at a rally. He was on the Wendy Bell show. We got a plug on the Wendy Bell show. And I thought, man, what an interesting guest. He was in my wedding too. And I was like, he's a good friend of mine. I'll have him on first. And then I interviewed my brother-in-law, Bryce Mitchell, who I'll hook you up with him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I want to talk about Bryce too.
yeah, and so I released the Bryce Mitchell one first, and then I worked with guys like Dominic Izzo and some other guys.
Yeah.
About a year in, I get an email from a company called Spreely TV. Spreely stands for Speak Freely. You can find Spreely on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire Stick. And they were like, we want you to do a show with us. How many days a week can you give us? And at the time, I'm managing and running a bar conglomerate with 3 locations. I'm busy as heck. I'm filming 1 or maybe 2 episodes a week, but then I'll take a week off and I'll release them. I was only releasing 1 episode a week. So I told them, I say, I can do Mondays at 4:00. And, the very first guest we had on was Ian Smith.
Ian Smith. Okay. Yeah. I've had him on. Actually, you hooked me up with him. I had him on. Yeah. By the way, everybody, Ian was the guy from New Jersey who kind of got pretty popular during COVID because he would not shut his gym down. And he ended up in crazy lawsuits with either the federal government or the state government and went through an unbelievable trials and tribulations. He's a big dude with a big beard, but man, he's got a massive following on social media. And that dude's a real dude. He's a real dude.
He's a real dude. And you know what? He got real popular because of Tucker, really. Tucker followed that story. Tucker had him on.
Okay.
Attila's gym in New Jersey. I mean, the governor over there, I think his name's Tim Murphy or Tom Murphy. He was a real piece of work. I mean, they raided his GoFundMe account. They took hundreds of thousands of dollars from the guy. They fined him every day. They arrested him. They boarded up his gym. But Ian's a good dude. Ian's a good dude. We ended up having a ton of guys on. We had Dr. E. Michael Jones, Dr. Alan Zabrowski. We had Ken O'Keefe. We had Sam Parker, Lucas Gage. We ended up going on the Stu Peters show.
Yeah.
We ended up, having a lot of guests, a wide range, a variety of people that are in academia. James Perloff, author and historian, he came on the show. We tried to break down what happened a week before we started doing this show for Spreely TV was October 7th, 2023. And we were already J-pilled at that time. We had already taken the red pill. We already knew what was going on. And we started calling everything out. It was probably a week into it. And Matt was saying, man, the response here is disproportionate. The response, it was like a week in. He goes, okay, so you have some guys come over in hang gliders and commit all these atrocities to these Israelis, which, by the way, Mossad has the best intelligence in the world, and the IDF supposedly the best, right? What are how does this happen? But he goes, okay, fine. Well, we're not going to buy some of this other stuff that you're saying about the beheaded babies and all this stuff. But let's just say there's some things that happen. There's hostages. Why are you bombing a hospital?
Right.
Why are you bombing a school going, well, there's 3 Hamas in there? It's always the human shield thing. It's always, that's their MO. But we started calling it out. And then I think we started really growing. Our YouTube was growing. We got monetized on YouTube. We were getting a larger following on TikTok. Accounts like yourselves, Josephine Gilbo, who we had on, Mohammed Dowd.
Yeah.
What an amazing guy.
Great guy. And great guy.
If I can real quick, and I'll go right back to the cancelization thing. When I started the show, I said I had a kind of anti-Muslim or anti-Islam sentiment because of being in the Marine Corps during 9/11.
Personally, you're saying you had a personal kind of anti-Muslim sentiment.
Yeah, I carried it around for a little bit because I thought, these Muslim terrorists were responsible for 9/11.
Yeah.
And
I love that I love that you just shared that, by the way, because that's awesome that you can share your growth as a human being.
Well, it's of course you have to be honest and forthright about things, and if we're going to call other people out, you got to call yourself out too.
Love it.
I'm carrying around this, I thought to myself, maybe Barack Obama was Muslim because I looked at Cassius Clay. He changed his name to Muhammad Ali. Look at Lou Alcindor. He changes his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
Well, Barack Obama's real name is Barry Soetoro, and I thought, oh, he's a Muslim, which I don't think that today. And my feelings towards, Islam and Muslim people have changed greatly. And specifically, since we're talking about cancelization, this is what I really wanted to say towards the people that follow me who are Muslim and are fighting this fight against Israel, and they're, having a stance here for the Palestinian people. When I got canceled, and I'll be quick on telling you exactly what went down, but when I got canceled, I had friends that I went to church with and grew up with in Christian school that were Christians that didn't talk to me anymore, that didn't reach out, didn't check on me. I haven't heard from since. I had, family members who are Christians that I haven't heard from since. And I kind of got discarded by these people. And I had a overwhelmingly just really, it's hard for me to say this because the amount of support that I received from the Muslim community was crazy. It was insane. The messages that I got, I had people sending me money. It was just an overwhelming support of love from these people who I once had all these negative opinions of. So now today I'll have people in my DMs who are kind of like, nationalists or white nationalists, and they'll agree with some of the things I say, but they're like, hey, why aren't you calling out what's going on here, Dearborn, Michigan, or with the Islamic religion, what you're seeing happening across Europe with this flood of Islam? And my opinions just changed over the years. And meeting a guy like even Muhammad Dowd, who's a former Marine, and sitting down with him, and these people showed me nothing but love. Nobody in the Muslim community has sent me a message, a death threat, hey, F you, I hope you die, I hope your kids get cancer, I hope your daughter gets raped. Nothing, none of that. None. I've got a lot from, a lot of Jewish people have sent me some really nasty things. A lot of Israeli accounts. I don't know if they're bot accounts. I don't know, what they are, but Muslims in the Muslim community has had my back. Really, even going back before I got canceled, when I have these guests on there, like, we're so, proud of what you're doing. Thank you for speaking up for us. Thank you for saying what you're saying. Not too many people, especially they, judge the book, they stereotype me, and they go, well, not too many guys that look like you or former Marines feel this way. So we appreciate you saying what you're saying. But back in March, to finish the cancelization thing, back in March, we have Phil Torney come on, and there were Reddit threads that were made directly a week after. The same day we had Phil Torney on, we went live on Rumble with Phil Torney, and then we went live on Rumble with Stu Peters. So we got a lot of attention that day. And with us in the interview, Phil Torney brought his son Bryce with him. So Philip Torney's son came, and there was all these Reddit forums and Reddit threads that were made calling us all Nazis. They first went after Bryce Torney. They doxed him. They found where he worked. He's an engineer in Houston. And they called his boss, and they called the company he works for. And the company took a hard stance, said, no, we're not firing him. We don't care. He can do whatever he wants off the clock. Matt is a contractor. He's self-employed. He works for different construction companies. So he's hired through all these companies, and they really don't care. They found where I worked. They called my place of employment. They doxed not only me, but they doxed the owners of the businesses, put their personal addresses out there. They came after my mother. I had my mom on, who's a professor at Geneva College in Beaver Falls. It's a private Christian college. I had my mom on for Mother's Day in 2023 to honor her, to thank her for everything.
Love that.
And they must have gone through the catalog and Spotify and YouTube and everything, found her, found the school that she works at, called the school, said that, hey, you employ, mother of a Nazi, stuff, and all this stuff. So, it was a big news story around Pittsburgh at the time. I got covered by local news. I went on a couple radio shows and had to answer some questions, and I stood my ground. I didn't apologize for anything. If you had an issue with what I said, don't listen, don't watch.
Yeah.
But you can look back and the conversations that we had. Some things, you and I had a conversation, over the phone, like I said a few months ago. Matt's delivery is rough at times, and he knows that.
Yeah.
he's a punch you in the mouth type of guy.
Yes.
Where I'm the guy that delivers the message soft. I'm the good cop. He's the bad cop, and we both own who we are. But Matt doesn't know how to be any other way, and I wouldn't expect him to try and be anything than who he is.
Yeah.
So he turned a lot of people off and got a lot of people angry, a lot of people mad, but a lot of people watched the show. It was like the Howard Stern, Rush Limbaugh effect. People
Yeah.
wanted to tune in to see what he was going to say
Yeah.
next.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I got canceled. I've since then I found new employment.
So your bosses literally ended up firing you over it.
I decided to step away.
Okay, got it.
I myself. Now, the ownership there, I've known those guys for years. 16 years I worked for that company. You know, they even continue to pay me under the table after everything had happened. And they felt really bad about it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just thought for myself, I don't know, for their business and for the sake of the friendship and relationships here, I thought it was the best thing for me to do is just to move on.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Dude, that's
as far
a
as
lot. That's a lot.
As far as the podcast goes, but for people that are updated and know what's going on with Matt was diagnosed with cancer back in April, and it's kind of progressed pretty fast. He had a tumor cut out of his spine. They found cancer in his bladder.
Oh,
And he's at stage 4 right now, cancer. So he's doing chemo, and his spirit is upbeat. He's strong in spirit, but we've kind of put a pause on the podcast for now. And I'm going to let Matt fight this fight. And when he gets better, then we'll be back at it.
okay. All right. All right. But did YouTube take you guys down? I know TikTok took you down.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Within a week, Ray, within a week of me being on the news and doing all the radio shows, I got demonetized, and within the same week, demonetized on YouTube. And then the YouTube got taken down. I got demonetized from TikTok, and the TikTok got pulled and taken down too. I got a letter or a note, email from PayPal saying that I violated terms of service. I couldn't use PayPal anymore.
My goodness.
And I couldn't log into my Gmail account, which was connected to the YouTube. I had to create a new Gmail account because the Gmail account that was connected to YouTube wouldn't let me log in.
Wow.
It happened all within 1 week.
Wow. What about Instagram? Did they mess with you there?
I decided preemptively. I got a lot of, I can't collaborate. I can't go live for like 336 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something like that. I have 3 accounts. I got a Burn Pit backup account. I have the Burn Pit podcast account itself and my personal account. I decided to make those all private because there were a lot of people, I think, just mass spamming and reporting, just posts and reporting things. So I just decided to make everything private.
Okay. All right. Oh my God, dude. That is a lot. And thanks for sharing that about Matt. You know, I'm going to give him a call and wish him the best. I'll actually try to, did he have a GoFundMe going for a while? Is that still going?
It's still up. I shared it on X.
Okay, I'm going to share that. Yep. I'm going to share that on the Deep Shallow Dive Instagram because that's my biggest platform, and hopefully people will contribute. People are amazing until you ask them to pay for something, whether that's whether that content or helping out. Then all of a sudden the hands are stuck in the pockets. Okay, all right. Let's talk a little bit about Bryce Mitchell because that's your brother-in-law. And for those of you that don't know, Bryce is, you know, one of the, I don't know if he's one of the top guys, but he's a big guy in the UFC. I forget if he's a bantamweight or a featherweight, what he fights, but Bryce is a legitimate UFC fighter who also has been, you know, pretty outspoken with just his opinions and his views. So I want to understand Bryce, but before you do that, I did want to say, man, I've consumed so much of the Burn Pit podcast, and I have to tell you, you guys, and you in particular, you're such a gentleman, and your delivery is, I mean, you are absolutely the good cop if Maddie was the bad cop. But even in that situation, you guys are just giving your opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, it blows my mind how much they came down on you because I listened to so many things. There was nothing inappropriate. Doesn't mean I had to agree with everything, but that's America. At least I thought that was America. I thought we were here to listen to each other and agree or disagree, or my favorite thing in the world, agree to disagree. So anyway, that's pretty crazy, man. All right, let's talk about Bryce a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, so he's married to your sister?
Well, so we call each other brother-in-laws, but it's my wife's
Oh,
sister that
okay.
he
Got it.
married.
Got it.
So my sister-in-law married Bryce. So this happened a few years ago. Bryce went on Tucker Carlson actually, and because after a post-fight press conference, after he beat Edson Barbosa, he was asked randomly about the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and he gave his opinion. And he said, "I don't care what's going on over there. If a war comes to America, I'll dig my boots into the ground and I'll die for the country I love."
Yeah.
And that just went viral. So Tucker has him on, and here my sister-in-law, she sees him, and she was a big Fox News junkie.
Yeah.
She didn't watch anything else, but she watched Fox News. And so she sees Bryce on there. She has no idea who Bryce is, but she's like, "I like this guy's message. Like, that's awesome. Like, I love it." And she goes, "I'm gonna DM him. I'm gonna send him a DM and just say, I saw you on Tucker, love what you're doing, all this stuff." Well, Bryce responded
That's
to her.
hilarious.
And they just kept going back and forth. And about 6 months later, I get a call from Bryce, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm coming up to Pittsburgh. Will you help me move her? She's moving to Arkansas." And yeah, within 6 months, she moved down to Arkansas. And then a year later, they got married, and they just had a baby who they named affectionately Tucker, because
No
Tucker
way. That's
Tucker
hilarious.
is how they got together. So they named their baby boy Tucker.
Does Tucker know that?
No, not yet. I mean, he's going to be one here coming up. So he's Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson. Yeah. Does Tucker
Yeah, of
Carlson know
course.
that? Okay.
Yes. So if you go to like Bryce's Instagram page, you scroll through, he was at when Trump got inaugurated,
Yeah,
he
he
got
was at
invited.
the
He was there. So he was with Tucker, he was with Theo Vaughn, he was with Mel Gibson, he was with all the crew.
yeah.
And of course, they told Tucker about it, and there's pictures of Tucker holding the baby and everything.
That's
So
hilarious.
yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, Bryce speaks his mind, and he's been very outspoken about the Gaza stuff and all that. So
Yeah.
did the UFC come down on him? Did they blackball him or anything?
Well, so you have to remember that the owner of the UFC
Yeah.
is Ari Emanuel.
Right.
Right. So he's Jewish, for those that don't know.
Yeah.
Bryce got in trouble because he started a podcast, and on episode 1, he made the comment that originally he didn't think that Hitler was that bad of a guy. He's probably a guy I could go fishing with.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That was clip got taken out of context, because when he finishes, he keeps going and he goes, but something happened along the way that turned him, and he, maybe he wasn't that bad of a guy at first.
I see what you're
But
saying. Yeah.
then something, happened there, and he changed his way. So, they came at Bryce pretty hard. And he was worried, he was texting me, and he was worried that he was going to get fired or they're coming after him. But he had to offer kind of a semi apology
Yeah.
to kind of, get out of that a little bit. And he's been quiet since, and he's been successful. He moved down from featherweight to bantamweight. So he dropped 10 pounds. He's fighting at 135. He just fought in Abu Dhabi, and he won. So he's doing good.
Have you ever like spar with him or mess around with him? Because you're so much bigger, but like I'm wondering, like, could you take him if it came down to it?
No, definitely not. No, so when he comes into Pittsburgh, I take him to a gym called Steel City Martial Arts.
Yeah.
And it's a jiu-jitsu gym. And the guy there's a great guy. His name's Santino Achille. He's a black belt, and Bryce is a black belt too. Well, Santino will let Bryce kind of run the class. He'll go, go ahead, be the instructor for the day.
That's
And
cool.
and Bryce is a beast. Bryce is a beast, and he probably walks around 165, 170, but his level of jiu-jitsu, is he's on another class. I mean, he's a shark in the ocean, and I'm a horse.
Wow.
That's what it is. He's just a beast, and size sometimes matters, but for a world-class, high-level guy like him, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
So jujitsu's his thing. That's his strong suit.
Great wrestler, and
Did
he's
he
a black
wrestle
belt
in
in
high
jiu-jitsu.
school? Did he wrestle in high school?
High school, college, yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh my God. All right. So he walks around 165, 175, and then he cuts down to 135.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight. It is a
Wow.
lot of weight. Yeah. I mean, they start that weight cutting process pretty early. I mean, fight camp, sometimes 12, 16 weeks. He starts cleaning up his diet. He starts, doing a little bit more running, working on the farm a little bit more than
Yeah.
normal. And, he cuts the weight down pretty good. Plus, the last like 8-10 pounds is just, you're sweating it out in the
You're
sauna.
sweating it out. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Trump, because what's interesting is on the episode that me, you, and Maddie did, which again, God, I'm so pissed, technical difficulties screwed that one up. I asked you both, and it was interesting. And I think you and I were sort of on the same page where at the time, and again, this would have been July 2024. It was the Monday after the Saturday Trump quote unquote assassination attempt. I think we were relatively positive overall on Trump. And Maddie was just like, I'm not voting for anybody. I'm not voting and all that. So I know you, let's say, maybe had a previous affinity to him. And again, I don't even know where you stand. And now I'll share where I stand. And then I'd love for you to tell everybody where you stand. I've just been very disappointed. I think it's a different person than I voted for. And it's a different person, quite frankly. On inauguration day, that whole inauguration was just weird. It was goofy. All of a sudden, he's best friends with Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and all these people that for years are calling him Hitler. I've said this before. All the Obama, Biden, Hillary Clinton the other day came out complimenting him on his Russia negotiations. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but again, these guys were so visceral against each other. It's hard for me to believe that they can flick a switch and be so friendly. So where are you at? So I'm disappointed at how he's been since being inaugurated. I'd love to kind of know where you're at with things with him.
Yeah, I wish I would have stuck with my gut. My original feeling with Donald Trump in 2015, when he came down the escalator in June of 2015, was, he's an entertainer. He's been, in the public eye for so long. This probably is like some sort of stunt to sell a book or to just get some publicity, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, he goes on stage in July of 2015 with Frank Luntz. Frank Luntz is a Jewish pollster for Fox News. You see him with these pollster groups. Trump makes a comment about John McCain. He says, well, he's a war hero, I guess. I like my war heroes who weren't captured. And I thought to myself, ooh, wow, that's a heck of a statement to make. He's probably now done. And then you fast forward to September, he's at the first primary debate. He's in the middle of the stage. Brett Baer and Megyn Kelly are the hosts of the debate. And he's polling number one. He's above Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin. He was above Jeb Bush, Ben Carson, Ted Cruz. He's leading the field. And the very first question that Brett Baer asked, well, two, was, if you lose the nomination, will you be willing to support the eventual nominee? And two, and they said by a show of hands. And two, are you willing to say you will not run as a third party? Everybody raised their hands, yes, except for Donald Trump. And I thought, oh, here we go. This is going to be another Ross Perot. And for those that don't know, Ross Perot ran in 1992 as an independent candidate. Basically, until he died, George Bush blamed Ross Perot for his loss against Bill Clinton in 1992. And I thought Trump was going to be the Ross Perot. He might not win the Republican nominee, but he'll run as an independent. He'll take some of that Republican vote and they'll usher in Hillary Clinton. And then he gets the eventual nomination, I'm surprised with. And then here he comes to the first debate with Hillary Clinton, or the second debate, I think it was the town hall. And he makes that infamous comment, it's a good thing I'm not in charge of the law and order in this country, or you'd be in jail.
Yeah.
And I thought, all right, this guy might be serious. We might have something here. Like, he could be coming for blood. I like it. And then, you know what? It was kind of just more of the same. When I saw his original cabinet picks, the RNC had got their talons into Trump. Reince Priebus had said, basically like, hey, you're going to pick Mike Pence and you're going to do this. You're going to play ball or we're not going to give you any money. And, he picks a guy like Rex Tillerson. And then he picks these guys. It's like, I don't like the cabinet picks. And then COVID happens. And he just handled that so poorly. It was so bad. The way the country was shut down, the printing of all the money, the BLM riots that were going on, and Trump just kind of let the states handle themselves, which maybe was the right play to make. I don't think it was, but it's possible. I just didn't, trust the guy. And then when you see Miriam and Sheldon Adelson really come in and start lobbying him and him accepting all this money, I voted for him the first time in 2016. Because he said, I don't need that money. he gave a speech that said, I don't need that money. You can trust me. I'm independently wealthy. I'm going to fund my own campaign. And then he takes $100 million from, Miriam and Sheldon Adelson, who are Jewish casino magnates. And then you see the Jewish influence in his cabinet picks. Everybody is a radical Zionist, from Marco Rubio to Pete Hegseth.
The current ones, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my God, Pam Bondi, Susie Wiles, all of them are just Mike Huckabee. They're all radical Zionists.
I'm actually surprised now that he didn't give Nikki Haley a position, or that he didn't give Mike Pompeo a position. I'm genuinely surprised now. At the time, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the dude. Fuck Nikki Haley. Fuck Mike Pompeo.
Right.
Now I'm like, shit, you might as well have given them something too. You gave everybody else everything.
Right. I mean, it's crazy to see when you see the Department of Education's breaking the back of Ivy League schools right now. They're coming after, and then you see the State Department's revoking citizenship for people that are critical of Israel. You have FEMA coming out and saying, hey, you know what? If you participated in any BDS against Israel, well, if there's some sort of natural disaster in your city, your municipality, your borough, your township, well, good luck to you. No search and rescue for you. And then you have RFK Jr. declaring anti-Semitism a public health.
Yeah.
It's like it's a public health emergency.
Exactly.
It's what's happening. And this is the thing, Ray. These are the things that we brought up on the podcast saying, you know what, we're noticing a pattern here. Something's going on. So there's something happening here. But it's like, if you talk about it, you must be a raging anti-Semite. That's the thing that I never, that I started with, like seeing early on, say in 2017, 2018, 2019, Rush Limbaugh for years went after the Chi-Coms hard. Weekly was talking about the Chinese communists, which he called the Chi-Coms.
Okay, that's funny. Chi-Coms. I've never heard that expression. Yeah. That's funny.
The Chinese, the Chi-Coms, the Chi-Coms.
Chi-Coms.
Okay. And no one ever said, oh, you're obsessed with China.
Yeah.
What's your obsession with China? Israel, was attacked on October 7th. It's of 2023. It's been less than 2 years. And they've been kind of at the forefront in the headlines of the media and alt media for a little less than 2 years. And they're crying anti-Semitism because the world's calling them out on their bullcrap.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, you're obsessed with Israel. You must be obsessed with Israel because you're anti-Semitic. And it's like, well, no, I just noticed that here in America, these schools had to pay, Columbia and specifically had to pay out a $200 million settlement.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insanity.
It's insanity.
It's
all we're obsessed about is 5-year-old kids not getting their limbs blown off. And honestly,
or starved to death.
Or starving to death. Like I'm at a point, honestly, on a personal level with many friends, I'm at a point where I'm like, dude, enough is enough. Like if you're going to come at me with some bullshit, I'm going to strike back hard. And if that means our friendship comes to an end, maybe that's the natural evolution of our friendship, because again, we're people who have no skin in this game. Our only skin is the fact that we have the same skin as those people and we're human beings. It's insane, man. It's insane. All right.
And we could be selfish and not talk about it.
Right.
And just say, it's over there in the sandbox. We're going to sit here. We're going to live our life, enjoy. We have food. We have shelter. We're not getting bombed constantly. But I think it's very selfless of someone like you with a big platform to say, you know what, I don't care if I lose friends. I don't care if I someone discards me because I'm standing up for what I believe is true. So be it. Be it. If you lose a friend, so be it. That's
absolutely,
how
dude. Absolutely. I actually think you guys with Berm Pit, you were almost 6 months to a year too early, because I feel like if you right now were still, you and Maddie, saying the exact same things you were a year ago, you'd be fine. But a year and a half ago, it was very different to where it is now. And I will have to give Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Joe Rogan, to an extent, a tremendous amount of credit. Even Pierce Morgan, he's really brought a lot of things to the table, and he's transgressed and changed his opinion on things. But honestly, man, I just wanted to tell you what you and Matt talked about, your content, your way of breaking things down. Maybe until you figure out your next move, maybe I'm going to have you as one of the key contributors to Deep Shallow Dive, and based on whatever is accommodating your schedule, every few weeks we jump on and go through things, because honestly, I think you bring such a unique voice to this platform and this stage. And again, for all those that, don't see what you look like, that matters too. Because again, when people see that, how tall are you?
I'm 6'4",
Okay, here's a guy who's 6'4". What do you weigh?
250.
250. He's 6'4", 250. He looks like if I stick a fork in his neck, it'll take him 8 hours to realize there's a fork in his neck. I've seen some of his workout videos. I try to emulate him and I hurt my back. So, but again, that stuff is cool. It's cool that like you're this person that should not have such a handle based on looks. This is why you don't judge a book by its cover. You should not have a handle on the nuance of geopolitics and religion, because you come from that evangelical Christian world, but you have such a great handle on that. Listen, man, we could go on for another 2 hours, but I'm going to let you go. I really mean this. I think, we've been talking a lot about, doing things together and all that. I think as just a bridge, man, let's have you on here more, and we can talk about different things and maybe pick specific things. But I'm also really looking forward to seeing what you want to do next. Maybe you and Bryce have a podcast together. Maybe you and Jay Slade do something together. We've talked about you debating Greg Stoker, the one and only Greg Stoker, who's taught my audience about the difference between liberal and leftist. And I know you guys have a nice rapport going. So maybe we'll have actually, I think that will be an incredibly interesting conversation / debate between you and Greg Stoker. So let's try and set that up as well.
Sounds good to me. I enjoy Greg. I think he's a high IQ guy. I think he's very passionate about what he believes in. I think he's growing his platform. He's doing a great job. He has the Colonial Cast, and he's left. I think he's left of center. I'm willing to sit down with him and try, because the whole point here is to figure out a solution.
That's right.
Because what we're in isn't working out.
That's right, man.
So we got to find a solution. And if he can bring ideas to the table, I'm willing to hear him.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Well, listen, I think you're a high IQ guy. And so we're going to do some more stuff. All right, listen, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. I'm not kidding as much as I did, because I really enjoyed this talk with you. I learned a lot. And I think this is absolutely the beginning of doing more things together. I really mean that. I want to do that with you.
I'd love to. I'd be honored. I respect the heck out of you, and I think you have a great platform. And if you ever need me for anything, let me know and I'll show up.
All right, you got it. All right, sounds good. Hang on the line, Scott. All right, everybody, call a spade, call your parents, and just stop being an asshole. If you're an asshole out there, stop being an asshole and just be a good person. And whether you're left or right, I don't care, but I do care about being right versus wrong, and you've got to be right. We've got to make a stance on that. All right, hang on the line. All right, everybody, we'll talk to you soon.
This episode was brought to you by Zippix nicotine toothpicks. Zip more, smoke less. Totally satisfying, discreet, and delicious. Zippix nicotine-infused toothpicks are available in 6 great flavors, each containing at least 2 milligrams of nicotine to curb those cravings. Zippix is FDA registered and proudly made in the USA. Use discount code DSD for 10% off your order at zippixtoothpicks.com. Zip more, smoke less, save 10%.